It is Wednesday. RawMikeRichards.com, broadcasting live once again from 234 King Street East in downtown Toronto, the Pacific Junction Hotel. Matt Kalish, co-founder of DraftKings, going to be coming in very shortly. In fact, he's here with a entourage. That's the first time that has happened.
I was going to say, most people just walk in here by themselves.
That's very good.
Look
at that. That's very impressive.
Okay.
I am very impressed by that. What else are we impressed by? Well, yesterday at the OHL Steelheads golf tournament, that was a lot of fun. Now up on YouTube. Took us a while to download it. It was our first remote ever. We were excited about that. Had a great time with a lot of the players. And once again, more controversy with Saga, the mascot.
Check that out if you haven't seen it already. It's hilarious.
Refuses to be stealing.
How many times do you see a mascot interview?
You don't.
It rhymes with schmever.
Yeah, you may not ever see it again either. But we'll get that up for you later on today. But that was a lot of fun, so we appreciate that courtesy of Elliot Kerr, owner of the Steelheads, our good friend Tom Harley, who also provided us with just the greatest location. So if you have a chance to see it, do that later on today. Once again, it is finally up. Looking at what we want to talk about, first of all, this morning before we get to DraftKings, which is interesting because in the second year of that CFL deal that they have, talking about the world of fantasy sports, boys, it come a long way. And when you're talking with two of your other buddies, that is, if there were three of you and you said, you know what, I think we can make like $1 billion doing this. Well, first of all, I'd say put the drink down. How do you figure that? Well, they did, and they've done it big time. And I don't see them slowing down anytime soon either. So Matt Kalish going to join us at the bottom of the hour. For the Toronto Blue Jays, as much as, I know people keep wanting to talk about, there's so many games to be played, Dave, and they're going to climb over 500 very shortly. But apparently just climbing over 500 hasn't been the easiest thing for the Blue Jays to do. So once again, they run into Tampa Bay. They've had problems with this team for years, though. Even when Tampa Bay couldn't beat anybody else, seemingly they could beat the Blue Jays.
For some reason, yeah, especially when you go down to Tropicana Field. There was always problems with the Blue Jays there. But you know what? This year in general, Tampa playing Toronto anywhere just hasn't worked out for the Toronto Blue Jays. We'll have to see what happens moving forward. But, man, again, taking that step back, that's the sixth time the Blue Jays had an opportunity to get to that 500 mark. They haven't been able to do it just yet, so they wrap up that short two-game set tonight at the Dome. Now 31-33 on the season. Yesterday, Mike, the big story, Marco Estrada, all sorts of problems considering this guy has been their ace, especially in the postseason. He's gotten beaten up pretty good this season and very human yesterday. 3 1/3 inning, allowing 12 hits and scattering 6 earned runs in that time. Maybe his worst start in about a calendar year.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit because that's a name that comes up if they're going to be sellers, that would be something that would garner some return. But are we also looking at a pitcher who now has been in the American League East long enough? Are guys starting to figure him out?
You know what?
Because keeping the ball in the park was kind of maybe a little bit on his resume before he got here.
Yep, before he got here, exactly.
Yeah, before he got here. Are we seeing a return of that to maybe who he really is?
I think yesterday was just a slight hiccup, to tell you the honest truth. I expect a good bounce back from Marco Estrada, and the reason for that is he's kind of varied his pitches now when he made the trip to Toronto, and he has that off-speed pitch, and it hasn't been working the last couple of starts. So when you're mixing it around, because the guy isn't a power pitcher, the guy isn't going to topple 90 on the gun, so you're kind of looking at a situation where if you're not going to blow them by with heat, you have to mix up pitches. He's not getting it. He's not juggling all over the plate like he did last year. I look for a return to that soon, and hopefully for the Blue Jays' sake, it happens in about 4 days.
Well, Logan Morrison made sure that it was going to be a rough night. We go to basically Major League Baseball, property of Major League Baseball. The third inning, not a good one for Estrada, but for Logan, he was okay with it.
Center. Pilar will go back and watch that one get out of here. Home run to center, a 3-run shot by Morrison, and the Rays have a 4-run inning, a 2-home run frame. And Logan Morrison has just hit number 18.
I noticed they still refer to it because it's WestJet, right? So they had the WestJet, the flight deck. And so the Tampa Baker's like, yeah, right off the flight deck. Flight deck? Flight deck. Are they being sarcastic? Are they saying the ball was hit so far? It was so high that they're referring to that as... No, it's WestJet.
No, it's just yeah, exactly.
The flight deck.
And by the way, anytime Logan Morrison gets behind a pitch this year, there seems to be a flight deck involved because the guy has 18 round trippers, and he's been one of the reasons why, and this is going to be a surprising stat, the Tampa Bay Rays are top 3 in Major League Baseball in team home runs. This was not a team in the past known for the long ball. It is this year, and you know what? And considering who they have to play against and what division they're in, and that they have more home runs as a team than the New York Yankees, that's saying a lot. This team, by their standards, overachieving. I don't expect the Tampa Bay Rays to be this good. And don't get me wrong, they're not winning a division, but they're playing above 500. They're playing decent baseball. They're beating on teams that they probably shouldn't. But right now, there's going to be a market correction with the Rays coming up, I'm guessing, sometime soon.
When do you ever talk about Tampa Bay and something good with bats? Like, unless your last name rhymes with Schlongoria, rarely do you get anybody who can do anything. They can find pitchers. They find pitchers.
Yeah. And their minor league system is always good.
Yeah.
They're a feeder system. They were kind of like the Montreal Expos of the past, where they were a feeder system for the rest of Major League Baseball. You draft a guy outside of Evan Longoria, you're absolutely right. You draft a guy, you put him through the system, he works out, and then all of a sudden, signed by the Dodgers, signed by the Angels, signed by the Yankees.
Do they stay? Is this a franchise that stays?
No.
It doesn't feel like even the community even gives a damn about them being there.
When you and I are talking about the same subject in about 5 years, don't be surprised if they're called the Montreal Expos. And I'm crossing my fingers on that too.
That'd be great.
I would love to see that happen. And I think this is one of the prime teams that could make the move outside of this Tampa Bay area.
Yasiel Puig is an interesting story because, people look at him. He's got the physique of like a Bo Jackson type guy. I mean, his story coming from Cuba is an interesting one. But the thing that continually seems to come up with him, Dave, is maturity. Like, you can be an emotional player. I get all that. But at some point when you continually act like someone who's a pissed off 19-year-old, because he's not anymore.
Nope.
He's not anymore.
26.
So this was last night in Cleveland. So, let's face it, Cleveland's a team that has aspirations, got off to a slow start. So there's a lot of emotion in this. So when you talk about the Dodgers and the Indians, it's a pretty good one. Yasiel Puig gets the better of this particular at-bat, and he lets the crowd know it with the double bird pump.
That ball is hit pretty well, right center field, and it is gone. Over the wall in right center field, making home run number 10 for Puig, and the Dodgers lead it 2-0.
Wait for
96. You can see the location of that ball. It gives him swinging room. Yeah. He stayed on it nicely, and it carries into the seats. So Dodgers break on top. It'll be 2-0 late.
Oh, there it is right there. Oh, my goodness. There it is, the double. Like, why? Like, what does he have? Just seriously, are we just talking about an immature guy that just can't control it? I'm not like, why would you pick that moment necessarily to even do that?
No idea.
Like, it's Dave. We're not.
But there's a track record with him. And he just doesn't get it. There's some guys that, and I'm looking at you, Matt Cook, some guys just don't get it.
Yeah.
It's like, how many times do you have to be warned or suspended or pulled back? When Don Mattingly was the manager of the Dodgers, Mike, he had all sorts of headaches, but the biggest one was Yasiel Puig.
Yeah.
And he's glad he's gone from that organization.
And it hasn't changed.
No.
Because the guy is a physical, like, he's a specimen, this guy. And he can play ball. But he's the one who, basically off-field, there were instances. You talking about Mattingly when he was there, stuff with cars, it's just really immature stuff. I don't know if it gets better for this guy. And is he, someone that, should he not wear a Dodger uniform, I mean, just because of what he's able to do, he'd be attractive to a lot of teams.
He's gonna garner interest because, just like we see in the NFL, and we talk about this a lot, there's going to be management groups that say to themselves, yeah, but we can change them. Yeah, we could switch things around. We could take this Hulk-like figure that has a big power bat and a big arm and change the mentality of the player. That's exactly what somebody else. He's going to get chance after chance just because of the stature, and you kind of called it right from the start. The Bo Jackson look.
Yeah.
Just not the Bo Jackson mind, because Bo Jackson was a smart player, both football and baseball, and basically anything Bo Jackson does.
You're watching rawmikeRichards.com or downloading the podcast on iTunes. Matt Kalish going to be coming in, co-founder of DraftKings, and again with the ability to do it daily, Dave. That's what I'm really interested in. Just the process that they had in doing this. And, of course, we'll also talk about the deal that they have with the CFL, which is pretty cool because for years, guys have tried to do CFL fantasy. And people said, nah, it won't work. Well, guess what? When there's money involved,
It'll work.
yeah, give me the internet. Get me on the site right now. We're going to make some money. And money is what they have made on both sides. Both people winning some and both those, three of them making some, Dave. So it's a pretty cool story, including MMA. And in talking with a lot of people in the gaming world, the people who bet the most on MMA, Canadians. It's Canada. We have a gambling problem, apparently. But the MMA world, and as you know, clashing with the boxing world, in the form of McGregor and Mayweather. And so people are like, are you going to have... Yeah, no, we're going to do something. Are they saying August 26th? Is that just sort of a temporary...
That's a temporary. There's also a rumor about a July date as well during National Fight Week, which I didn't know there was such a week, to tell you the honest truth.
That's just... sometimes you go to a Legion.
Yeah.
and you see the same thing.
National Fight Night.
Yeah, just a lot of nut kicking, eye gouging. It's a little different, and sometimes men and women. Like I don't know.
It's basically the possibility of it is any day that ends in Y. So I don't know if you have to have a hashtag for that or any kind of national week of it.
National fight. I mean, you need for boxing. I mean, and to be honest, do you think right now that the MMA, with everything that has gone on for it, and it has. I'll use the word trumped. Now people freak out when you say that word.
Yeah, careful.
But superseded what boxing was. But has it been a bit of a free fall? Are we saying that it's stalled a little bit? Maybe do both sides of those both represented sports, did they both gain from this? Or did they lose?
I think they gain from it because it's going to be one of those, you know what? I know what's going to happen, but I got to watch it. Because, I mean, honestly, is there anybody out there that thinks that Conor McGregor has a chance?
People that say they're not going to watch it are liars.
They are.
You're lying to my face. You're saying, it's like people go, well, I certainly never eat at McDonald's or KFC. Yes, you do.
Of course you do.
You pig.
You ate there yesterday. You went through the drive-thru because it was quick, easy. You know what you're going to get. The fries taste delicious.
The fries are crack.
I'm sorry.
Sorry for the crack people. They're like, it's not crack. No, but it is for the non-crack people. The fries are, I assume, like crack. Except we probably don't lose our house.
No.
Because we can't eat enough of the fries. And then I sleep with my sister because she says she's going to give me some fries. Like, I don't think that happens necessarily. But what I'm saying is, if you tell me that you're not interested in it, you're lying. Because then you're not even a sports fan. Then you're not even interested in actual fighting. And everybody loves fighting. Russell loves fighting.
Sure he does.
Well, have you ever fought your brother? Did you wrestle? Or, well, maybe another wrestling stories, because wrestling stories get weird a little bit.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Did you fight? Did you ever punch your brother?
I mean, heated mini stick battles in our basement.
Yeah, but not real fights, though, right?
Not real fights.
You and Mike never fought, did you?
When he was smaller than he is now, yeah.
Well, now
he's a foot taller than
now
me.
he'd fight the Pope. Let's be honest, Mike has some issues. May not want to mess with him there. But the fight itself lends to itself with some of the greatest smack talking of all time. Now, we've seen McGregor in action. What's it like with McGregor and Mayweather going back and forth? I got to tell you, it's gold.
This whole boxing world don't know what they're going to see when I roll in here.
I've never seen an MMA fighter make $300 million in one night. I haven't seen it.
He is scared shitless. Trust me, I'm going to stop Floyd. You're all going to win. You're all going to eat your words. The whole world is going to eat your words.
You might give him a chance. I haven't seen an MMA fighter make $100 million in one night. Yeah. I haven't seen an MMA fighter make $80 million in one night. I haven't seen an MMA fighter make $50 million in one night.
Still king. When I take that guy's belt, I'm looking around. I don't know what anyone else has for me around here. I might have to jump up and fucking drag Floyd Mayweather out there and see what the fuck he's at again. He a fucking comedian. How do you respond to that? He a fucking comedian.
There you go. Well, it's going to be interesting. And we're thinking actually that we're going to probably have at some point, if not in the actual location, the bar that we broadcast from, at least one of the buildings that actually the entire company owns. We work for very powerful and wealthy people. You're telling me that you wouldn't come to a bar and watch it with us, Russell, and then Russell shirtless probably showing us
for sure he's shirtless.
Kind of the moves that he would do.
He's probably shirtless at like 8 o'clock, and it's like, Russell, the fight doesn't start till 11.
Well,
what are you doing?
After that birthday card he gave Jess, I don't know what's going on over there. That was a little surprising. Or a rooftop or something. I think. Well, and we'll try to get that done, right? So if you are a member of rawmicrichards.com, so if you want to be a part of that, make sure you subscribe. It's really easy to do. You go to rawmicrichards.com. There's going to be a big button that just says subscribe. Hit that. And while you're at it, just pop on the little red one on YouTube. Someone said, "Well, how do you subscribe to your YouTube channel?" As soon as that video comes up, a little red thing in the bottom says subscribe. Easiest way to do it, hit that button. You're in on both.
Subscribe, y'all.
Yeah. We're changing the style of the show. Yeah, we're going to go a little white trailer park-ish. That's what I say, y'all.
Do it, y'all.
Yeah, that's right. By the way, before we get to Matt Kalish in just moments here, I forgot to mention the other day, and I think this is courtesy of CJOB.
Oh.
The new
Winnipeg's news and information station.
Yeah. So, sorry, no, it's CJME.
Oh, okay.
So
that is not Winnipeg's news.
This was a test with the Regina Rams playing a football game in the new stadium. If you haven't caught the new stadium,
it's awesome.
It is done beautifully. Just take a look at this. This is great stuff.
It's like
here.
You're not from Regina.
Yeah. Oops. So there's the Rams. Beautiful brand new facility. So that in Winnipeg right now, those are two stadiums that I think are beautiful. I mean, I like Tim Hortons.
Sure. Tim Hortons looks great. And you know what? There's some talk still about the Stampeders are going to be getting something. And if you talk about all the Western Canadian cities, Calgary is the one that's screaming for it the most because, the level of talent they have on the Stampeders team and for years to come, that might be the best of the best. Right now, Vegas has them at 3-1 to win this year's Grey Cup.
Look at the noise also for a CIS game. You got to love it. As I said, Saskatchewan is probably the closest thing we have to as an American-style feel for football. It is where football lives, with apologies to everybody else, but boy, I'll tell you, they got some great fans. Okay, so the idea of fantasy sports as a whole and how it started and how the kinds of monies, not only that you would make by providing a league and a service, but for those that actually make the kind of money that you can from DraftKings. It is an interesting story, and at times a controversial one. Matt Kalish, co-founder of DraftKings, going to join us after we have a little listen to him, ironically talking about, that's right, the U.S. Open, which starts like in a matter of a day.
Open was a huge event for us. I think what we've learned this year is that golf majors rival any major event in sport. You know, NFL weeks, playoffs, anything, and the demand that we saw and the engagement from players was phenomenal. We had a tournament that was $20 per entry that we filled over 140,000 seats and awarded $1 million to someone new who. I think was pretty happy to see Dustin Johnson push that final putt a little bit to the left. And, it was a great experience, I think, for DraftKings, for all of the players to be able to watch the U.S. Open, a major event, and for 4 days just enjoy that experience and the sweat of down to the wire, seeing what would happen in the tournament. Hey, there's a lot of overlap between people who like poker due to the competitiveness and strategy and skill element, and daily fantasy. We knew that we had to do something with WSOP, and I think the first thing we did is we did a patch deal with Greg Merson when he won the main event in 2012, I think it was. And then for the last 2 years, we've done a WSOP sponsorship that's been, gradually deepening and escalating, and we love the partnership. It's something that drives a lot of value for us, and I hope that we're giving a lot back too in terms of qualifying in about 50 players from DraftKings to the main event. Today in the DraftKings 50-50, we qualified in several people and just kind of adding to the liquidity and the overall action in the WSOP is something that we're definitely looking to do. DraftKings has been around for about 3 years now, so still pretty new, and I think what we've been able to do in that 3 years is launch 10 different sports and try to make them all really good and improve where we thought we had gaps over time, and we're definitely not going to stop at 10. We're going to have
Well, improved, I'm sure they have. I think as Matt Kalish has joined us here in our studio here at rawmikeRichards.com, that interview is probably, what is that, a couple years old, I would say, probably?
Yeah, it's 2 years ago, almost exactly now, so yeah.
So when you look at the things that you were saying 2 years ago, because DraftKings is something that, on a month-by-month basis, if, you're going back 2 years, the changes that you think that you have not only gone through, but implemented, it's pretty significant in 2 years, the past 2 years.
We've made a ton of progress, changes. A number of different areas of the business look a lot different now than they did 2 years ago. Certainly, our company's up to 320 people now, so we've been able to do a lot and have an amazing technology, product team, marketing team that's come together over the last couple of years and really, I think, added a lot for our players.
Matt, when you go back and you take a look at, and again, sort of the genesis of where this comes from, and I'll go back to sort of being in sports radio pretty much my entire career. When people start talking about fantasy sports, and I'm listening to it, I'm like, so you're going to build these teams. You're like a pretend general manager. And then what happens? Well, we have these parties at the end of the year. You get rings, you get a jacket. So you don't get anything. You just do it for the enjoyment of that. Yeah, I'm like, well, what kind of legs could this possibly have? Well, apparently that's a lot of legs because you're taking a look at something that dominates conversations from almost adolescent boys to men of all ages. So at that point for you in 2012, but before that, why do you think at some point you were able to monetize this idea and make it the giant that it is today?
Well, I think the existing season-long fantasy sports companies monetize really well. I'd say better than us even in some ways with, if you look at an ESPN or Yahoo in the States, they just have a different revenue model. They're doing free games that are all supported by advertisers and sponsors, and they have millions of players who come on and participate in those leagues, and I think that's one way to approach it. What DraftKings has done has been much more focused, I think, on just creating a really great ecosystem for players to come on and compete and do that more rapidly, more fluidly, I think, than you can do in a season-long league. Like if you think about the season-long experience, you come on at the start. If you don't sign up, you can't play. It's not like you can join halfway through the year.
Yeah.
And you have a very static group of friends you're playing against. You have a static team. You can't really change that much. Our game's much different. I mean, you come on, you can play every week if you want. You can take weeks off if you're traveling. You build new teams every single week. You change who you're playing against. All the different setup of the league can be customized or changed every single week. So it's a much more dynamic, I think, way of playing the game, and the more serious of a fan you are, I think the more that you really appreciate and embrace all of the different dials that you can turn when you're playing daily fantasy.
I was going to say you also get the more serious stat fan on the daily level because you kind of talk about the season long thing. Well, you've played in these before. If you have a league of 12 teams, if 6 of them are out of the playoff situation by mid-season, you don't even set lineups even more. You kind of just forget about it. Now with you guys, if you lose on Monday, you try again on Tuesday, and you go for it on Wednesday, and you have the opportunity on the weekend. So it's almost you give the fan itself a daily opportunity at 10 different sports, and I think that's what kind of drives people like me per se than the guy that's going to sit there and say, okay, well, we'll see what happens in December when the season's over.
Yeah, I think our players are very competitive. You have people who want to get in there and figure out a game that's not easily mastered, and I think nobody reasonable expects that you're going to come on and the first time you ever look at it, you totally understand what the best way to construct a roster or the best way to value the players. And it takes a little bit of time. You digest the game and try to learn, over the course of a couple of weeks or months while you're playing, and learn where, you could have done something differently that you would have performed better. And there's a really amazing, I think, community around daily fantasy sports. There's a ton of content, Twitter, forums, articles that get written that help new players come in and learn the ins and outs of how to think about building teams. And, anytime there's a new season, like with the CFL starting up, there's a ton of articles as well that get written about just how to think about the season that's coming up, the best way to build rosters in that specific sport. And I think our players really, deepen their engagement with the sport as a result. Like they become almost obsessed with just trying to learn, every player, all the injuries, what's going on. And, I'd say it's a much more heightened version of what you'd see with season long, for sure.
We're in conversation with Matt Kalish here on rawmike.richards.com talking about DraftKings. And, of course, you just mentioned the CFL and the deal you have with them. And we're both CFL guys, and we've both worked out west and have been fans forever. And, of course, we're always told within our own country that having some sort of fantasy involvement would never happen. I mean, it would, there's a pushback because of some of the feelings that people have about the Canadian Football League that, quite frankly, Dave and I obviously don't have, and I think most of the nation might, outside of Toronto, might argue that. So I'm just wondering, in approaching the Canadian Football League, doing sort of your due diligence, what leads you down that road to make this actually happen? Or do red flags go up and say, well, maybe this is not going to be a fit for what we do?
No, I think so. First of all, leagues, teams, and athletes love DraftKings. And the reason why they love DraftKings is because of the amount of engagement that we drive. Like, this is actually our second season doing a partnership with CFL. Last year, we announced it in the same week. The CFL ratings were up 10%. And we have 7.5 million fantasy players on our platform that we're promoting this game to. So these are people that are just looking for something. In a lot of the case, it would be like an American person who there's no NFL right now going on, but they love football and they realize that we launched CFL, so they want to try it. Or it's, a Canadian player who just was waiting for us to launch it and we didn't have it before, and now they're finally checking back in to, see how the game works. So the ratings went up 10% immediately for the whole season. I think the millennial audience was up almost 10%. Females were up, almost 10%. So it was really, I think, a strong initial result, and that's why leagues and teams and players love us. We just increase the engagement in the content itself and the awareness of the athletes and the teams.
Do you also think it's also, you just mentioned sort of some of the demographic, it also probably is very attractive to them in terms of the younger demographic that this kind of brings?
Yeah, we definitely skew towards that sort of younger audience, no question. And I think our sweet spot is 18 to 49. We have a very, very strong engagement and adoption with that range. And it's an audience I think a lot of sports leagues want to reach better. Some are doing better than others. Like the NBA, for example, I think is doing a great job reaching the younger audience in the U.S. and in Canada. And there's some other leagues that feel like, fantasy could help them a lot. Like the PGA, I think, sees a lot of value in the fantasy engagement that they're seeing. And, the leagues that tend to have the slightly older audiences, I think, are really trying to tap into fantasy right now.
What kind of audiences are you getting? You kind of touched on a little bit with the American, football fan that wants to see what's going on CFL-wise because there's nothing in the States. But, you have clients in Europe and the UK, big population out there that loves DraftKings. Are you seeing those continents watching or wanting to see what's going on in the CFL at all? Do you guys have numbers on that there is an attraction that now that you guys are on board, other parts of the world are now interested in a CFL product?
That's part of what we offer to the CFL when we're talking about the deal. Like you asked, what do we do when we go and talk to them? Certainly it's the idea of increasing the fan experience for people who are already fans of the CFL and making that better, like helping those fans get closer to the game every week. But we also have this massive audience of people that love football, but it's the National Football League in the States, and that's in the off season right now. So we can go to them and say, we have 6-7 million people playing National Football League fantasy. We think we can cross a ton of them over to start following Canadian Football League. And in the first season, I think we saw some really nice results on that, enough clearly that they and us both wanted to renew the relationship this year. And it's going to be our focus this year as well, just trying to continue to increase the adoption, the amount of people that are following the Canadian Football League.
Well, I also think too that the model itself is a reflection of younger people and how they live their lives. So, for instance, instead of spending all that time on a league that goes, the 18 weeks or whatever you put into it, now there's instant reward, which is kind of how we all live our lives on the phone. I mean, it's just a reflection of that. It's also, I think, in terms of the things that say, let's say, under the age of 25 that they find engaging. So that's why I think even, when poker started to take off, when all those things, like the demographics were much younger than what we would normally associate with that. So that's why when I kind of take a look at, NCAA sports, the old guard that runs that, do they have a difficulty with actually understanding that the youth that makes that live? Is there a disconnect there when it comes to something like this? Or is the NCAA just fine with being a part of this?
Yeah, I mean, I think every league has their own unique, people and ways of looking at questions like that. And, I think what we've tried to do is really educate all of the relevant kind of commissioners, league stakeholders, team owners, like as many people as anybody who will hear us out, basically. We want to sit down and share the impact that fantasy has had on engagement in the sport and the league, and what it means to the fans that are watching. It's actually, for a lot of people, I think, become almost boring to watch sports unless you're playing fantasy.
Unless there's action on it of some kind.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm sure it hasn't always been that way, but over the last 20, 30 years, as fantasy has really built up, and especially since daily fantasy in the last 5-7 years, it's become so important to fans. I just don't think sports exists quite the same way without fantasy anymore. And so we've been trying to really share a lot of that engagement data, just show, fans are watching 60% more games than they would if they weren't playing fantasy when they have teams. They're reading all of the content leading up to each week, all of the different injury news, this and that. They're checking into all of the programming, and that wasn't happening before. You had a lot of home team fans. If you're in Toronto, you're following the local teams. If you're in Boston, Mass, you're following the local teams, but you're not following the whole league, all of the teams, all of the sort of things going on. So I think that's really the difference between fantasy players and not, that we want to educate all of the league owners about, and that's what really helps get them, I think, in our court.
You're a Boston guy. What is your team? Do you like just the Celtics, Patriots, Bruins, or are you more of one sport than the other? What's your, if you're not around us and you're not at the office, what are you watching at home tonight if you have a variety of opportunity to watch something on TV?
Yeah, so right now I've been following certainly the Red Sox, but also I watch a lot of UFC and golf in the off season.
Yeah.
But I would say favorite sports, definitely, National Football League with the Patriots, and the ownership of the Patriots is actually invested in DraftKings, and they've been a huge help to us. So we're very loyal to the Patriots. You like them
even more, right?
Yeah. Whenever somebody's talking bad about the team, we're always right behind them. We have their back. So the Kraft family has been amazing supporters of DraftKings, and I think people that we've really, really benefited from being close with.
So, and I just find it very interesting that in talking to people in the gaming world, for instance, that Canadians love action on MMA and UFC. They just love it. What's the kind of movement that you have within DraftKings on those kinds of sports? Do you find that as a growth sport?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I think NASCAR in the U.S., MMA globally, a bunch of sports really needed a good fantasy game that fans could play alongside watching, and it's going to be something that people tune into passively either way on some level, but the fantasy experience is much deeper. It really makes you want to watch the whole
absolutely
the whole game. And there was really no great UFC fantasy games. There was no great auto racing fantasy games for a while. DraftKings really created those and tried to drive that initial burst of engagement, and I think we've been thrilled with the kind of engagement that we've seen. I would actually say PGA with the U.S. Open coming up is another great example. We have hundreds of thousands of people who play these fantasy leagues for the Masters and for U.S. Open. And prior to DraftKings, there was really nothing that big. I mean, people would do office pools or
That's
different
it.
little
Right.
things.
That's
Pieces
right.
of
That's
paper,
right.
right?
But there was no way that you could go online and play like a U.S. Open Fantasy League before DraftKings built that. And, we were kind of stunned, I think, in some ways that, hundreds of thousands of people started showing up and playing. But it makes a lot of sense. It's way more fun to watch when you're playing.
No, exactly. So what's next for you guys? You guys just closed another year of the CFL. That's year number 2 for you guys. Is there anything else coming up on the horizon? Or do you kind of just sit back and just keep on growing within the company?
Yeah, we have a few different things that we're working on at this stage. I think continuing to deepen the league relationships is really important. So like the partnership with CFL, being able to renew that and continue to grow the adoption of that game is really important. From an international standpoint, right now we operate in U.S., Canada, United Kingdom, Germany, and what we're really hoping to do is add some more countries to that in the next year. We really see the opportunity as being global. The sports might change, and the specific way that you market or operate might change. But sports fans are pretty much the same people no matter where you go. They just want a way to play alongside and participate. So international is definitely a big one. And then the last area I would mention is on the content side. We've been very focused on making sure that there's an amazing sort of live second screen content experience that we can provide for our players. We launched something called DraftKings Live, DK Live. It's an app that you can get in the store that it's basically a live scoring news notes app that tracks all of the fantasy scoring alongside the actual in-game scoring. And that's something that we thought was a great companion for any fantasy player, much better than just using a standard scoring app. So we've been putting a big team on that.
And that comes with the app, right, itself? Because there is a live button with the DraftKings app.
Yep. So it's a separate app that's integrated.
I gotcha. Okay.
So if you're watching the scoring for a team that you built on DraftKings,
Sure, yeah.
You can launch DK Live from that scoring screen, and it gives you the much more detail of the play-by-play of the games.
Gotcha.
You can click through to different games.
Okay, I've seen that.
Are going
I've seen
on.
the advertisement for that. Okay, I understand. Now, you talked about expanding into maybe more countries in Europe, and you talked about you're big in the UK, which is really no surprise considering how big of a sports gambling, a sports daily fantasy sports population that is. Germany. What does it take to get into some of these other countries? Like, say, if you were to talk about getting into the Czech Republic or Spain or Italy, what does it take from a company's point of view to try to penetrate that market and get acceptance into it? What do you guys have to do to make that happen?
We have a team in place that sort of runs all around the world trying to better understand those questions. Every country's different. So
yeah, because I was going to say that must be a different it's not the same puzzle everywhere you go.
Yeah, I think what's good for the players is no matter where you are, you have the same protections in place. Like in the U.S., and in the UK, there's regulations on this sort of game that are meant to protect consumer experience, make sure, for example, money that you deposit is kept safe, that there's certain protections around who you play against, how much information you have against your opponents in the game, things like that, entry limits in the games, things like that. And those have been vetted by a bunch of states like Massachusetts, New York, the UK. A ton of different entities have looked at and made decisions about how that should work in our space, and we apply that to everyone. There's not in the same way a specific regulation in Canada, but we still apply the US and UK standard in Canada, even though we don't have to, just because we think there should be a standard way that companies operate in this space. So we'll continue to apply that anywhere we go. I think it gives us a good start when you're talking to a regulator in, for your example, Czech Republic or something.
Yeah.
You can say, we already have all these protections in place. It's safe to play, for consumers. And we have 8 million users who love the game.
That's
we get
incredible.
Amazing feedback. So I think that's a really great starting point when you're talking to somebody that's maybe not as familiar with what we do and trying to educate them.
Correct.
So are you the most popular guy in your neighborhood when you go back to Boston? Are you getting free Sam Adams? Are you what's happening for you? Because I got to be thinking people should be worshiping what you have done for people, and then there's got to be the family side where they go, what does Matt do for a living? What is little Matty doing? How does your family even explain like 6 years ago what was going through your head? How did they even explain that?
Anytime you start something new, you have no idea if it's going to work. So it's just a risk, pretty pure risk. And I was lucky to be around a lot of people that were very supportive of that. Like my family knows me pretty well and understood that I'm that kind of DNA where I'm going to not be too complacent with, just working in corporate America forever. So,
were you a numbers guy? Are you on that side of the world?
Yeah,
what was schooling for you? What was schooling for you?
So in school, I was computer science and economics, and then most of my career was in analytics, actually. So I was always a numbers guy, and on the side, I was also very competitive with basically everything. Like I was a college athlete. I did all of our company, softball leagues and all of this. Anything that you could compete at was fun. But also on the more brainy side, I would play chess, card games, like anything that I could get my hands on that was competitive and not easily mastered. I always liked. And fantasy is a great example of that. My two partners I started DraftKings with, we played a bunch of season-long, baseball, football leagues together, and started talking about this business in 2011 when, we were just looking for an out, I think, of corporate America, trying to come up with something. So this idea we started working on, and very fortunate, I think, that it got so popular.
You talk about your co-founder, your partners, your co-founder, your friends, basically. How long have you known Jason and Paul for?
So I've known Jason pretty much since I graduated school in 2004, so over 10 years. And then Paul, a little less, but not much, like maybe 7 years. And we knew that we would work well together. It was fine. Like we had worked in corporate America for many years and knew each other really well and had great working relationships. And you kind of have to when you're doing something like DraftKings.
Oh yeah, absolutely you do.
I don't think we could have gotten through all the things that we did in the last 5 years. It's tough doing a startup, and if you don't have a great relationship, things kind of crack and break down. So the fact that we're still all working together, I think, is the proof.
Could you have been that successful if you still had that Southie accent that everyone tries to imitate and does it really badly? Would that still have worked out okay for
I
you?
think people think you're a little less of your I'm just kidding. No, I've been around Boston my whole life, so that's like my world in a way, and there's definitely a lot of the
because you don't have that thick accent at all.
If you're drinking,
that's right. See, outside of Boston, Gary Goldman, I didn't even know it's from Boston, because his brother calls him Gare. Yeah, he goes, I don't talk like that. I don't have that thing going on. He said, well, there are people who actually don't sound like a Wahlberg or something. Yeah. But very popular.
They do exist.
Yeah, they do exist. Well, Matt, thanks so much for coming in and joining us on the show. We're pretty new ourselves. We're only like a month and a half into this.
Too, exactly.
Awesome. So we've had a massive following from coast to coast, and just the way that we found in terrestrial radio that was literally and is shriveling up and dying, that we had to find a way in a medium that, this is certainly not new, but the way that we approach it, we have a 3-shot. We were on remote yesterday with a team that actually, so we can sit down and talk to the players and get stuff, sort of up close and personal, so guys like yourself, when you can come in, we're actually delivering something that I know that they use, and there's no parameters. I'm not owned by a big, corporation that has certain feelings about certain sports and the way that you handle it. We have none of that. So that's one of the reasons why we did this too. So we just, we think it's great that we now have the chance to talk to someone like yourself, because I think the story's fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, you got to be able to sort of adapt and survive, and things are always going to change. You can't stop the, direction that things go. And I think, it really just comes down to, can you figure out what's going on in the world and adapt and figure out what's next. So,
and you're having fun, obviously. You're having fun.
Oh, love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wouldn't trade my job for anyone.
Thanks so much for coming in, Matt. That is Matt Kalis joining us here today in studio, rawmikeRichards.com. Normally we have something very clever that we would do we want to roll the more of the video that we had coming in? Because we're just doing this on the fly. Yeah, we'll run more of that. We'll come back on the other side and we'll finish up on the show. Matt, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you. The U.S. Open was a huge event for us. I think what we've learned this year is that golf majors rival any major event in sport, NFL weeks, playoffs, anything. And the demand that we saw and the engagement from players was phenomenal. We had a tournament that was $20 per entry that we filled over 140,000 seats and awarded $1 million to someone new who I think was pretty happy to see Dustin Johnson push that final putt a little bit to the left. And
It was a great experience, I think, for DraftKings, for all of the players to be able to watch the U.S. Open, a major event, and for 4 days just enjoy that experience and the sweat of down to the wire, seeing what would happen in the tournament. Hey, there's a lot of overlap between people who like poker due to the competitiveness and strategy and skill element and daily fantasy. We knew that we had to do something with WSOP, and
oh, there it is. Once again, Matt Kalish coming in talking about what is just crazy and what has turned out to be a lucrative story, but you got to take the chance to do it. And that's why I think it's so interesting that when you meet guys like that, you realize just that even though cerebrally they know it still takes that, as they say, intestinal fortitude, the guts to say, I think we can make a living on this. And again, it's not unlike, something that we're trying to attempt here with rawmackrichards.com and hoping that the people find and like-minded people find the thing that they want to use the most. We're not on for 3 hours. We're on currently right now for, a little over an hour each show. Now, it's gonna, trust me, someone said, is that the show only going to be like an hour and change? Well, once it gets into into the fall, so September, October, November, when all the sports are going, we're going to have some regulars, we're going to have some stringers coming in here. And
Bingo.
A lot more stuff. So it's probably going to be a little longer than that. Probably, I'm saying still probably no longer than an hour and a half, I think, because there's a lot of stuff that we can cram into an hour and a half. But
you got to remember, we're not exactly jamming you with 6 minutes of commercials every 15 minutes.
No.
I mean, that's for other places, not necessarily here. So, you know what? When you look at content itself, in a course of an actual radio hour, Mike, you're only getting 38 minutes of content, but with us, you're getting the whole 60 minutes. So, I mean,
and so much more, as we like to say.
Yeah.
And so much more. Speaking of the more, you just heard him talking about the U.S. Open. I think if you're on the tour and you have a big enough name, obviously you're playing in the U.S. Open. Do you really need to be whining about fescue, or that you think that the second cut is a little too deep, or you think that it's not fair? Because I'll be honest, it is a whopper of a golf course that these guys got to play on. And they've cut down the fescue, I guess, a little bit. Rory McIlroy had an interesting thing. He said, well, just if this is too hard for you, just go home. Pack up your bags and go home. And, to a degree, I don't blame him. These are, by I guess, technically the width of the fairways. These are some of the wider fairways that they've seen on the U.S. Open.
Yes.
But the U.S. Open is always going to be the tough but fair course. It's always going to be the big challenge where, not surprisingly, if a guy wins, it's going to be, what, two under or something?
It's kind of the way golf should be played. I'm not a big fan when you throw up a leaderboard, Mike, and you see that Dustin Johnson won and his 4-day number was minus 26.
Yeah. And a lot of people are that way too.
You kind of sit there and you go, well, is that the Arena League football style of golf course of the PGA Tour? Yeah, probably. Exactly. I mean, you're looking at Erin Hills, Wisconsin, where there's going to be a lot of rain, a lot of wind, conditions in the rough, and your winner's going to finish anywhere between -5 and -7. That's my prediction on it. It's a long course too, so you got to pull out the driver in a lot of spots, and you got to land the driver successfully on the fairway, and that's going to be tough. So it favors the bombers, but it favors the accurate bombers, which, as we know as just Sunday hacks, sometimes you bomb it. Most of the time, you're not too accurate.
Yeah. And then there's some guys who bomb it, and it goes in the forest, then they go into the water, then they go into a trap, and then they say, put me down for 4.
They do. We got a name for that. We got a name for that, too.
Yeah. So Paulina Gretzky gives birth.
Tom Harley is the name we're looking for.
Tom Harley.
Yeah. Always do that. Yeah.
Huge cheater.
A lot of 4s.
Massive cheater.
Even on par 5s.
Paulina Gretzky, by the way, still referred to as fiance.
Yeah. Haven't tied the knot yet.
Things not serious enough.
I guess not.
No commitment. So their second son just a couple of days ago.
Okay.
And so he's going to play. Now, Lefty, I believe, has a graduation for one of his daughters, and he's not going to be there. So he has not won the U.S. Open before.
No.
And I'm not so sure this tournament right now is for him. Now, Dustin Johnson, on the other hand, it's kind of the way that he has played in the last 2 years. he might be the number one pick for a lot of people this weekend.
And he is the favorite right now, Mike, going off at 7-1, followed by Jordan Spieth. Rory McIlroy still getting a lot of love. I think he's more of a public bet just because like he hasn't
I
won
agree.
anything in a while.
Yeah,
but it's because of Rory. You sit there and you go, yeah, Rory's not winning this tournament. So he's in at 12-1. Jason Day and Ricky Fowler comes in the number 5 spot at 16-1. My pick about 3 weeks ago was Jon Rahm. I got him at 26-1.
He's a bomber, right?
He's a bomber, and he's had a lot of nice top 10 finishes. Right now, you could get him at 20-1, and there's a couple other long shots out there. I like Paul Casey at 55-1.
See, they've got Ricky Fowler. They keep talking about Fowler, and I don't know. I mean, not that he can't hit the ball, obviously, but I wouldn't put him in the same category like a Jason Day. But I think again, that reminds me of the Rory kind of pick, where he's just a really popular guy. Obviously, plays tremendous consistent.
He was number 1
stuff, yeah.
last year too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I don't know. It's this is going to be a lot of fun to see who could maneuver in and out of this golf course.
I'm surprised, and I'll always say this just because of his, and length, that a Henrik Stenson doesn't win more often on the tour.
Former FedEx champion, but yeah, it's and big frame too, big.
That's
frame.
what I'm saying.
Knows how to hit the ball properly. I don't know. You'd put him in the same category as Bubba Watson as far as power, but maybe a better placement golfer as well. But he's actually in let's see here, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. He's ranked number 13 right now. You can get him at 27-1. So it might be one of those European players, and a lot of people are saying this could be a European winner coming up on this U.S. Open. So you know what? He's one of the cream of the crop. Another one is Sergio Garcia. He got that Masters jacket. He got that major out of the way. So a lot of people are sitting there going, is this the same sort of scenario where when Phil broke through at a later age, the major started to happen? Could we be seeing the same thing with a Sergio Garcia?
I know they're saying that, but I also think it can go the other way. Because I won the last one, and now I already win, then I can just relax.
Because
I think
it's the opposite, exactly.
Because I'm
now
wondering
he can relax.
There's Sergio Garcia. He's bowling, is it a 7-iron? No, it's suntan lotion, as he really seems to be enjoying the sun here. I don't know if I feel that that's what's going to happen for him.
Yeah, no,
I know everyone seems to be all of a sudden very happy for Sergio. I'm just still not in that camp necessarily. I don't know.
Sergio, to me, and I think it's just because of the years and years and years of seeing this, will always be the golfer to me that melts down on day number 4 of the tournament.
Either melts down, or for me, the one reason he didn't win more championships is if you're going to be and have the heart of a champion, sometimes you got to make that shot that you just almost can't even watch. You take a chance.
Yep.
And maybe not as extreme as a Phil Mickelson, where everything is like a riverboat gambler, but perhaps he just, at times when I expected him to really go for it, he lays up. He's going to come in the top 5. He certainly comes in the top 10. He has more than made his money.
Yeah, a nice purse at the end of the day, but
the killers who win, and that's why I'm saying I don't know if that all of a sudden allows him to have, because of the lack of the pressure, all of a sudden he's going to have a killer instinct, because I don't see him still as a killer.
That's interesting.
I don't.
So we'll see. We'll see. Time will tell. And I'm curious to see if Sergio takes down another tournament this year. I'd like to see that happen, and then I'll kind of make I guess a market correction on the judgment of him. But I don't know if Sergio's going to pull a Phil Mickelson where we start seeing multiple Masters or multiple major tournament wins from him. But always a consistent player, though, right?
Well, speaking of consistency,
that's always been with him.
Coach Frank, who's a birthday boy, he celebrated, what is he? He's 21, I think.
Is he 21?
Yeah, Coach Frank, yeah.
He posts some interesting things on Instagram, too.
Well, on Instagram.
Yeah, the comments he makes. It's almost like he works for Hallmark or something. I should read them to you one day. Maybe we could have a segment.
Okay. Here is Coach Frank saying, I'm loving Justin Rose. At 20-1, the guy's always on the leaderboard at majors, just so consistent. That is true. I don't know about winning necessarily, but if you want to put,
Olympic gold medalist Justin Rose.
You look at what he does each and every week.
He's won a U.S. Open before, too.
On a Sunday, you got to figure he's going to be at least in the running, and that is consistency.
he'll be on the front page of a leaderboard if that leaderboard is around 10 names.
Just to sort of wrap things up here, talking a little hockey. This is the time of year currently where the strangeness because of the expansion draft that you see the players who've been kind of secretive, I guess, right, in terms of waiving or not waiving. Dion Phaneuf, however, that was public. He said, no, I'm not waiving it.
Yeah, and it's kind of thrown a little bit of a wrench
but
into what the Ottawa Senators are doing.
But don't you think it's a little awkward? It's like going on a blind date or something, and you think it's going really badly, and you say to the girl, so I think we can just sort of agree that we won't see each other again. And she says, I have a reservation for us next Friday. You just spit on me like 5 minutes ago. You said I was the worst person you ever met in your life. Well, we're going out. Now what do you do? And I feel like Dion Phaneuf's like, I'm not moving. I'm not leaving.
Well, not only that, and that's just one of the many examples, but the NHL will publish protection lists. So when and Vegas will peel off one player per team to start off their roster, and that's great. Now, the players that are on that non-protect list are still showing up at camp in September. And I'm almost thinking that there's almost I'm guessing there's a healing period where the player's sitting there going, wait a second, back in June, you didn't even protect me for the love of, what, and now I'm back here. I mean, mentally speaking, people should understand and players should understand you could only protect 10 players or whatever it works out to. But
you know that
you can't help to sit there and say you weren't part of the Big Ten.
So then Russell comes back to camp in Edmonton, and they're like, "Hey, roast beef," and they're like, "What do you mean roast beef? You mean you serve me up like roast beef?"
Exactly.
Like there's going to be a strangeness to it, except for maybe a Marc-Andre Fleury. It's just been so public, that he's not going to be there. That
I think he's going to be dealt before this. If Pittsburgh,
I think a lot of stuff's going to happen beforehand.
I'm waiting for it. Like I'm surfing everywhere here just to find out something that's happening. And the only thing I've seen is, Florida hired their new head coach yesterday. Florida also promoted former Leafs defenseman Brian McCabe. He's now the director of player ops. So he's kind of moved up the totem pole. And you know what? And don't be surprised if he's a general manager, believe it or not, in the next couple of years, because that's the jumping piece. And who would have thought that?
No, nobody.
I'm just saying that's the jumping piece to the next level and so forth. But there's got to be some movement soon, and there's a lot of players out there, and that window for Vegas to talk to players that are pending free agents is open.
Okay, let me ask you this. So you're taking a look, and now you're the general manager of Vegas. So you know some of those players available. You know the young guys that you're going to be able to get, but it's going to be that weird mixture of some veterans and then some of these young stars.
Yes.
Now, I also happen to think, unlike other expansion teams, this won't be like the shittiest team of all time for like 5 years. I just don't believe that's. I think they're going to have some issues, but they're going to be competitive. This is not like the bad news Bears. These guys are going to go out and they're going to have some players. If you're looking at veteran players that are available, are you looking at a guy like a Matt Duchene, if he's available? If you're an expansion team, does a Matt Duchene, does he do something for you?
If he's available, which I don't think he is, just because he's in a contract, and I don't know if the Avalanche want to give him away for nothing. Yes, he is, and I think also Vegas will dip into free agency to pluck some sort of notable name that you stick on the front of your schedules and your stickers and your calendars.
Does Jordan Eberle sell tickets in Las Vegas if you had some sort of trade and you got him from Edmonton?
Oh, that's interesting. I hope they'd go for more of an impact player than a Jordan Eberle, but you're kind of on the right foundation, though, for a younger player. I honestly think, although he'd kind of be rotting away if there's such a thing in Vegas, a Marc-Andre Fleury.
Dave, there is a lot of rotting in Vegas. You just don't see it. But trust me.
So
half the heavy metal guys go there to die. If you look at like almost every hair band from like the 80s and 90s.
That's true.
Where did they end up? Las Vegas. Doing what? Rotting and dying.
I don't quite mean it in the same way, but yeah, you're right. But they will put that face in front of everybody. And that's why when we were talking about this about 2 weeks ago, about the possibility of the Washington Capitals dealing in Alex Ovechkin, or just freeing it up because maybe he doesn't fit what the Capitals want to build there anymore. 4 years left on the contract. Alex Ovechkin, and I'm not saying this is happening because I clearly think it is not happening, but an Alex Ovechkin trotting him around and taking him to all the Vegas hotels and sticking him in front of a podium and letting him do his little, the hockey stick is hot tricks and all that kind of stuff would be ideal. Like he should be wearing an actual armor knight costume and stick him in every single press conference there is. And he would be worth the price of admission because they would be losing every night 6-3 and he'd get the 3 goals.
Can you imagine? You're sitting there, you're playing in the show, you're on a team. And it's a team meeting. The coach comes in and said, look, we've got some news. We've got some hard decisions to make. There's going to be an expansion team, and we can only protect so many of you. Yes, Richie. That'll be on a hockey team.
Sure.
Richie. Where's the where they're saying the expansion team is? It's Las Vegas. I volunteer. I do not protect me.
I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm
Dave
in.
is Dave also. Yeah. I know we were both a 1 and 2 on your team, but nice knowing you guys. See you later. Best of luck. Can you imagine? That's what
I'll pay for my own flight.
Yeah, it's like those guys got a car waiting that's got like logos of the Knights all over it.
There is a major opportunity for a significant hockey player to take over a city before the Las Vegas Raiders get there, because you're going to be the big sports ticket in town.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of other acts, and Celine Dion and Britney Spears, and I'm sure Kiss will be there. And
see Celine Dion showing up again on this show.
Yeah,
you know what happened
know.
last time. And you know how excited Russ got and talking about necking and feeling up and stuff.
He does get excited around Celine Dion, but you have the opportunity as an athlete to take over a town like Las Vegas before Carr and company join you in a multi-billion-dollar stadium, because the NFL will be king in Vegas.
It's Lord and God normally where it goes.
They're king everywhere. They're king in New York City. It's nothing to be ashamed of.
Was it you that said, or who came up with the idea of selling the Mark Davis wigs?
Well, we were talking about.
Was that you?
We were talking about having a barber shop in the stadium.
A barber shop,
free Mark Davis haircut.
Just the bowl, like it's going to be
who
outstanding.
would look good with a Mark Davis haircut?
Who?
Tom Harley, because he has that face, and Tony Luciano.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, here's all these people tweeting because of my haircut, which it takes a while to get used to.
There's nothing wrong with it.
No, people are saying whatever.
Well, people thought I was wearing tablecloth shorts yesterday too.
Oh, that was from one of the Hall of Famers.
Yeah, I mean, whatever.
Okay, so here's some of the things. Someone said, what about a golf tournament? You know what? It's not about it. It's just because we're so new, we've started, that in trying to get people from all over the place, it might be hard to arrange in our first year. We definitely want to do the boxing.
Yep.
Jay Barker, a good friend, in the tournament we're going to do in Hockley Valley, the charity event for Aiden, that's, I believe, July the 11th. So we're going to go up and that will be our first MC.
Is it the 11th or is it the 12th?
It's in there somewhere.
Okay.
It's in there somewhere. So we'll bring the cameras up again, though, too. I mean, we'll go and talk to a lot of the people up there. So we really enjoyed doing that remote yesterday. It was our first one. So a lot of the stuff we didn't know what the hell we were doing, which is why no show showed up yesterday. We had all this stuff done, and yet we sort of had a logistical problem in figuring how we get it up. It is up now. If you're looking for yesterday's remote live with the OHL Steelheads, great conversation. Nick Hague was there, Mikey McLeod, and of course Owen Tippett we talked to as well. So both Owen and Nick. In Owen, you're talking about a top 5 prospect possibly, and I think 20 or under, depending on where giant. Was it 6'7"? Nick Hague's going to come in. Going to be very interesting. But boy, we had a great time. Elliot Kerr, the owner, and we appreciate the time yesterday. So it is up now if you want to see it. And again, we'll get it in the archive section, I believe, or just go and subscribe to the YouTube channel. That is the best way to do it. And once again, if you're watching and thinking, well, I wouldn't mind you guys doing what you did yesterday for the Steelheads. We're open. I mean, the summer is the time for us to sort of experiment, because once the fall comes, it's going to be jam-packed. So we do have some room if you want to do it. We just love doing it. We thought it was a lot of fun. So if you want to get a hold of us, do so at rawmike.richards.com.
What? We just become best friends? Yep. You want to go do karate in the garage? Yep. It's time!
Hey, huge thanks to Matt Kalish from DraftKings and co-founder. Him and his two buddies are now multi-millionaires. But the cool thing about their business model and what they've existed, the guys are also making a ton of cake actually playing this on a daily basis. Because I got news for you. Now that they're with the CFL, guess what I'm doing? Yeah, come on. Daddy needs a new pair of shoes. Help me out. Thanks for joining us. Remember to subscribe to rawmicrichards.com and, of course, the YouTube channel as well. Download us on iTunes. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for joining us.